All right, the trade deadline has officially passed, and although my expectations were kind of met with the Vancouver Canucks, I didn't actually expect them to do some of the stuff that I thought they would do. And I'm happy, satisfied, but a little bit disappointed at the same time with this trade deadline. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the CanucksLand Podcast. Today I'm doing a solo podcast because CanucksLand didn't plan ahead for this one, and we're going to be rocking the trade deadline aftermath, kind of like I don't know how you want to call it, grading the trades, the aftermath, just seeing how the Canucks did overall in terms of my expectations. So the topics today are predictions, are going over my predictions again. That will be nice and quick because I did a whole video on my trade deadline predictions last week. The trades, how they did in the trades, and what's next. We'll be going over the trades, giving my thoughts about the trades, and then when we get into how they did about the trades, give the grades, why I gave the grades, and all that fun stuff. And yeah, what's next is looking forward to the draft, looking forward to the draft lottery, doing a simulation, and I'll probably put it up on screen. It'd be fun just to do a simulation of the draft lottery. TSN did it. Toronto won. What a surprise. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to try to be a little bit more free-flowing, a little bit more fun with this one because it's more of a podcast. I don't want to try to keep it contained like a YouTube video, so that will be the case. I'm going to go grab a pop, so I'm going to cut. All right, we're back here. Let's get into my predictions. So my predictions were that Tyler Myers would get a third and a fourth round pick. Bluger would get a third. Kane would get a fourth. Kampf, you just get whatever you can get. Just get an asset. Even if it was like an AHL player, just manage your assets. And Garland, I thought he would get a second plus. Now, I thought I was lowballing on Garland. We'll see. It wasn't actually that far off what he got. Starting off, we'll go into chronological order when it comes to the trades, as the first trade was Tyler Myers to the Dallas Stars in exchange for a 2027 second and a 2029 fourth round pick. Now, I like this I like this trade for both teams. I like it for Dallas. I really like it for Tyler Myers going to Dallas. As much as I wanted him to retire at Canucks, if we were sending him off to a team, and if it was Dallas, great. I want him to have best chance to win. He was a great community guy. I know his contract. He was a solid player for the Vancouver Canucks throughout his whole tenure. I understand the contract, the first contract. Yes, I was not a fan of the first contract, but I'll be 100% honest. All of my grievances I had with Tyler Myers throughout his tenure with the Vancouver Canucks was just the contract stuff. He's not playing up to his contract. I'm not going to blame players for getting the bag. Same thing with Elias Pettersson. I'm not going to blame players for getting the bag. But when your production, the difference with Elias Pettersson is when your production falls off after you get the contract, and you were living up to that contract, right? But Tyler Myers, the Canucks kind of overpaid him. It wasn't a great contract at the start, and he kind of just was Tyler Myers the whole way through. So I don't mind it at all. I don't mind this trade. More than what I thought we would get for Tyler Myers, which is good. I thought we'd get a third and a fourth. We ended up getting a second and a fourth. Also, with those picks being a 2027 second and a 2029 fourth, it dilutes my brain a little bit that this is going to be a longer rebuild. And management does think that this is a longer rebuild, even though some words from Patrick Allvin today definitely makes me worry a little bit of how he talked about the Garland. Was it the Garland second? Yeah, the Garland second, where I'm just like, oh my god, man. Why'd you say that? But next up is a Jet Wu trade. Jet Wu to San Jose in exchange for Jack Thompson. I understand this is a minor league deal. I like it because Jet Wu wasn't really going to get the chance in Vancouver. 8 years and he never got an NHL game. He probably might not get a chance in San Jose, but if he has a better chance cracking San Jose's lineup, especially since they just traded Timothy Liljegren, on the right side, I like it, and we get Jack Thompson, who is younger. He's only 23, he's 2 years younger than Wu, has potential to be a bottom pairing guy, but realistically he's probably an AHLer for most of his career, but hey, maybe he takes the big step to getting into the NHL, getting into that bottom pair, and we win this trade a little bit. It also adds a little bit more competitiveness on that right side for a guy like Victor Mancini, for Kirill Kudryavtsev, and that's about it for like right-handed defensemen that are kind of close. Like, it adds a little bit of competition, which is exactly what you need when you have prospects trying to make the NHL. Because if you make their life a little bit easier of trying to get into the lineup, then think it has, obviously, you have to work for where you are, but it puts it into her brain. It might be a little bit more easy. The more competition, the more people that are going to be fighting for that spot, the more harder they'll work and the more they'll develop. So I like this trade. Jet Wu seemed like not an obstacle. I would say Jack Thompson probably seems a little bit more like an obstacle for some of the other prospects to try to get past in terms of getting more up in the lineup and potentially making the NHL. So yeah, that's actually more than I thought I would say about this trade. I don't mind it at all. It's a fine trade. It's an AHL trade. It's not the biggest trade, but like it's a smart trade if you think about it. Where it's like the reasons I said it's a smart trade. It just adds a little bit more competition, and we get younger, which is exactly what we want. The next trade was Connor Garland to the Columbus Blue Jackets for a 2028 second-round pick and a 2026 third-round pick. I like the third-round pick. Fills the spot exactly where we needed it because we traded our third-round pick for Nikita Zadorov, so that was the only hole we had other than the seventh-round pick that we don't have. But that was the only hole we had early to mid in the draft with just a missing third-round pick. So we filled that spot. We had another pick this year, exactly what we want in the mid-round too. So it's going to be a lesser chance of making the NHL, but also if a third-round pick does hit, that's good. And then a 2028 second, and the way that Patrick Allvin did talk about this 2028 second with him being like, well, we could potentially package it into acquiring an asset. Unless that asset is like a guy who's just not getting enough ice time on a different roster, a bit of a reclamation project, but a little bit more of a better reclamation project than a guy like Lucas Reichel, where he's already more NHL caliber, middle six ready. Can he take that next step into the top six? Kind of like a Capo Caco, Alexis Lafreniere, if we're able to throw a second rounder in there later for a guy like that. I totally don't mind it. It's just that I want us to use our picks, and I would rather us spread our prospects throughout years so that we have like a consistent spread of prospects coming up to the NHL instead of banking it in on one draft or two drafts and then, this draft we can get rid of all our picks. You need to consistently be able to pick. You need a consistent amount of prospects flowing, and prospects sometimes have more value than draft picks. Sometimes, maybe a second-round pick turns into a guy like Lane Hudson. Potential, right? An underlooked player could fall to the second round and develop greatly, but there's a really, really, really low chance of that happening. You're not going to get Lane Hudson every year in the second round. So we'll see what that turns into. We'll see if they move it. I like the trade, though. In terms of the value towards where I thought Connor Garland would be, if you take away the extension, I think that he does get a later first round pick. I feel like the Islanders probably give up Colorado's first round pick in exchange for Connor Garland, just due to it being a relatively cheaper contract, just under $5 million, and it only being for 1 year, less risk, and him probably being more open. If he's open to re-signing, I feel like you're able to value it based on it this year because of how he hasn't scored in 23 games and the Vancouver Canucks just aren't great, and he wasn't playing that great this year. But yeah, in terms of the value we got for Garland attached with that contract, I don't mind it at all. I was hoping for 2 seconds and like a Ty Mueller type guy, but I feel like that's a first round pick. So I feel like we got, if you're going to tell me drop your value from there, I would say a second and a third. That's exactly what we got. Next up was Curtis Douglas getting claimed off waivers. Depth guy, I like it. He's 6'9". He's just going to be an absolute bully out there, and that's what we need. Not a lot of players on our team is stepping up for players that are getting hurt or a bad hit thrown on them. If Curtis Douglas does this in the first time that he's in a game where this happens, Vancouver Canucks fans are going to be happy, and I wouldn't mind extending him to a low money 1 year deal just to keep it, just to have a guy who will protect the rookies going through a rebuild, especially with him only being 26. I wouldn't mind maybe a 2 year deal at like $950,000. Giving him a consistent job in the NHL and have a guy who will step up for those young guys if something happens. Because if we keep having it where these young guys are getting hit and no one's stepping up for them, what are we doing here? Like, you need to show that you cannot mess with our young guys. They're going to consistently target those players, and they could halt their development with injuries. That's why I like picking up a guy like Curtis Douglas. Next up, Reichel to Boston for a 2026 6th round pick. It's less than we got, but I feel like we hurt the value with our coaching. We've traded a 4th for him earlier in the season. I didn't mind trading a 4th for him because Reichel probably plays more games in the NHL than a 4th round pick does. Adam Foote immediately puts him in a role that's not going to benefit him. And then you send him down to the AHL, you never call him up, and you never play him on the wing. And he actually does pretty good in the Olympics, and he's started to produce really good in the AHL. A 6th is fair value with what we did with him and how we marketed him and how we treated him. He deserved better in Vancouver, and we didn't give him that. And I know that he could have definitely came up, played on the wing, and it probably wouldn't have shown much of a difference, and it would have been the same thing, but we never gave him an absolute, the chance where it would benefit him. We just put him in a situation where he wouldn't look good. He had more on him than we should have put on him. Like, if we had picked Kampf up first and then we ended up picking up Reichel, I don't mind this at all. I feel like we play him on the wing. We start him on the wing, and I feel like he does better. But we got him before Kampf, and we needed a defensive center, and he wasn't that. He was a skill guy. I just don't like how we treated Reichel, but a 6th round pick is totally fine. I'd rather recoup an asset than trade a 4th round pick for nothing. Would I like to get a 4th back at least? Yeah, but, it's just life. We got a 6th. It's fine. David Kampf to Washington for a 6th round pick. Good job. You're able to get anything above a 7th. Like, a 7th would have been just like, oh, we traded him for something. But a 6th round pick, it's a roundup. I like it. It's good. Just getting Kampf off the books and opening up the spot for Aatu Räty to hopefully consistently play in the lineup. If Aatu Räty doesn't consistently play in the lineup after this David Kampf trade, then I don't know what Adam Foote's doing, and he needs to go. And I want to be positive, but I'm a strong believer that Adam Foote isn't the coach for this Vancouver Canucks team, and they need to get rid of him as soon as possible. As soon as you're like, there's literally no way we can get knocked out of last place, boom, gone. That's what I would do. And I would set Manny in, and you get a start where Manny gets to try to implement his systems just a little bit. Players get an idea of it, and he gets to send players away in the summer with a plan. Just be like, hey, this is what we're going to try to push at the start of the season. And yeah, sure, some of those players will leave, some of those players will come back, but then you have a plan. So, yeah, but we're going in a different direction from the trade. I like it. He gets a chance to go somewhere else and play in the NHL, and we get a 6th round pick. That's all I really got to say about it. Next up is the how did they do? And I feel like I'm going really, really fast through this. They didn't do a lot of stuff, so I do kind of understand why I'm going pretty fast through this. If I had another person here, we'd get a second opinion, and it would help us go a little longer, but CanucksLand doesn't plan. I will give grades. For Curtis Douglas off waivers, I did not end up giving a grade for that, but I'm going to give it a C, just a C. I don't know how much he's going to play. He might not play too much, but overall, I like it. Just a big guy who's going to defend our players. I mean, he's got way more penalty minutes than he does playing time this year, which automatically makes me a fan of him. Unless it was big, dumb, suspendable offenses, then I'd obviously be like, whoa. But if he's getting fighting majors because, he played for Tampa, the Tampa Florida games have been so fun in terms of that kind of hockey. I automatically am a fan of him. I just hope that he gets some playing time because I just want to see him rough up some. I don't want to see Zeev Boyum get hurt, but I want to see Zeev Boyum get blown up in a way that he's fine. But Curtis Douglas jumps the guy for it and does it. They both consensually drop the gloves and punch each other, but Curtis Douglas goes up to him and is like, you can't do that, boom, boom, boom. It would be nice to see. So yeah, a C for that because I can't really give him an A because it's a waiver pickup, but I don't want to give him a C minus because it's just a C. Overall fine. Tyler Myers to Dallas in exchange for a 2nd and a 4th. I'm going to give it a B+. Now, in terms of my expectations, it's definitely a higher. So my expectations, I'll give about a C+. I think a B+ because like they went over it, but they didn't do great. They didn't fleece the team. I think it's good for both teams. 50% retained. Don't worry too much about the 50% retained, especially with how we're entering a rebuild and we have cleared out a lot of cap space. I really like it. I'd give it a B+. Yeah, I've said it how I like it. So we'll move on to the Jetwoo trade for Jack Thompson. I even kind of gave my thoughts about how I do like the trade. It's a very easy trade to go over just for it being a minor league deal. I'm going to give it a B because we got younger, and it gives us more competition than what Jetwoo would have been. So that's why it's a B. Probably a little higher grade than some would give it, but I just like the thought of trying to put in more internal competition in the bottom of our NHL and the top of our AHL, because then it helps prospects develop. Next up is the Connor Garland deal to Columbus in exchange for a 2028 second and a 2026 third. I'm going to give this a B-. Overall, I think they did a good job. They didn't have to retain any money, and the value was decent, but the B- really comes from the offseason. Why was Garland signed to an extension? Now, I understand. If you hindsight 2020, why was Garland signed to an extension? Quinn Hughes hadn't given his decision. Management thought that you need to win with a guy like Quinn Hughes, which totally agree. If Quinn Hughes is on this team, you got to push to try to win as much as possible. And there's probably a lot of pressure from ownership being like, we have this guy. He's one of the best defensemen in the league, if not the best defenseman in the league. I think Cale Makar is the best defenseman in the league. But I only say that because Quinn Hughes isn't on the team anymore. You got to push to win with this guy. And that's totally understandable. It's totally understandable. But when they say, oh, we had inklings or we kind of knew that Quinn wanted out, what are you doing then? Then just plan ahead. Oh, why are we selling? We have Quinn Hughes. And then Quinn Hughes gets traded in December. And we didn't sign Demko and Garland to extensions. We sold a little bit. We didn't buy too heavy. We don't trade for Evander Kane. And then it all makes sense. And they were all like, okay. So they did that because Quinn was going to end up leaving, but he didn't want to give his say. Maybe we sell in the offseason. Quinn says before the start of the season he wants to go. Maybe Quinn just says. Maybe Quinn just says to the Vancouver Canucks, yeah, I'm not coming back. I'm not re-signing. I'm doing this so that you guys can trade me now and you have a direction before the start of the next season. Would have liked that a little bit more. Would have liked if management had used their heads a little bit more. That's why we're hurt on this Connor Garland trade, and that's why it doesn't get a higher grade than a B-. Reichel to Boston, I give it a C just because we paid a 4th-round pick and we dropped to a 6th-round pick. So we lose value. But also, actually, you know what? I'm going to give this an F. I'm going to change the grade on the spot. I'm changing it on the Word document like it matters, but I'm going to give it an F. I think that trading a 4th-round pick for Reichel and getting a 6th-round pick is fine in terms of we were able to get assets for it. But yet again, with how we treated Reichel, how we played Reichel, how we deployed him, how we sent him down to Abbotsford, how we scratched him for a while and never played him on the wing in Vancouver, never really gave him a good chance. I don't like it, and that's why they get an F, because the organization just failed him. I didn't think he was going to be a superstar. I didn't think he was going to be a top 6 guy immediately, but you don't give him the chance to prove it, and you lose 2 rounds. So yeah, David Kampf to Washington, I give it an A. Although he's the reason Natu Ratu wasn't in the lineup most of the time, and that does suck. Signing David Kampf for $1.1 million after he just got terminated on his contract, and then getting an asset for him, great job. You get an A. But overall, if we have to put it together, because I used minuses, so I don't know how many grades there would be, and I don't want to do the math all on here. Overall, this deadline, I'm gonna give them a C+. The Reichel thing and the Kane thing, which we will get to, because the trades, they weren't a part of trades, so we'll get into how they do. The Reichel and the Bluger and the Kane thing drop it down to a C. Actually, I'm just going to give him a C. I'm not even going to give him a C+. I like the trades that they did make. It's just the one trade one trade they did make does suck, and two things they weren't able to do are worse. Now we're into how they do. We get to add the last two parts to give my overall grade, but now I get to rant before we get into what's next. Alright, I had to let out that sigh because it's upsetting. What was the point of getting Evander Kane if you're gonna... What was the point of getting Evander Kane? And then what was the point of bringing Besser back if he was his replacement? Although, yeah, I understand wanting to keep Besser, and Besser wanting to stay in Vancouver. Helping out a team in the Pacific Division, deploying him like he's a superstar, ruining Elias Pettersson's season a little bit, because I think that if he played with Höglander more of the season, when Höglander was healthy, it would have helped Elias Pettersson more. And believing that this guy can be a pillar of your team, just so that even with 50% retain, you're not even able to move him. I created this channel to be positive. I understand that. But when the team doesn't give you a lot of stuff to be positive about, the negativity will flow. And I'm going to be negative about this one. This was a blunder and an absolute failure by management to not only trade for him, but not be able to move him because of how bad that trade was. You paid a 4th round pick to a division rival. You gave him $5 million in cap space and even 50% retained. You could not get rid of the guy, not even for a 7th. At this point, he's going in the offseason. He's going to be a PTO guy. Terminate it. The team looked way better last game without him in the lineup. Terminate his contract. Let him find... He won't be able to play in the playoffs. Let him find a team for the rest of the year. Maybe he gets a PTO. I mean, I think the terminating the contract thing was probably before. I just don't get it, man. This was a horrible blunder by management. I don't like this at all. I don't like that they weren't able to trade him away. You can go back. I was probably more of a fan of the trade then. And then as the season went on, oh my God, it's just bad. It seems like he has no motivation. As much as I get the criticism for the trade at the time, the thought of, like, he's in a contract year. Yeah, he is 34, but he's in a contract year playing for his hometown team. You would think it would motivate him a little bit more. I haven't seen a less motivated player on the ice in the NHL than that man has been. It is a blunder, and hindsight 2020, I'm going to look back and say that me liking that trade was dumb. Ugh. And you know what? I should not have liked it at the time. I was really trying to push the positivity, but man, that trade was horrible. It was so bad. And the fact that we weren't able to get out of it and get an asset for it is even worse. Evander Kane was an absolute failure of an experiment, and I'm happy that they were able to see that. Now they'll look at a 34-year-old hometown kid and who's a liability in the playoffs. He takes a lot of penalties in the playoffs. The refs put their whistles away, and he still takes a lot of penalties. I came around on this, and I don't like it at all. But, yeah, let's get on to the Bluger things, because I think I have I have a pretty normal take on the Teddy Bluger stuff, and it is that I think that not trading Bluger, although a failure because he is a UFA, if he re-signs for... I think a lot of people are going to say $2 million or less, and that's totally fine. For me, I'm going to up it to 2.5, just with the cap going up another $10 million this season, and then another $10 million the season after that. If he gets a 2-year deal at 2.5 with no trade protection, I don't mind that deal at all because it's movable, it's palpable, and with the cap going up, it's going to be a low percentage contract, no matter what. If he doesn't re-sign, though, and he leaves in the offseason, that's a failure. That is a failure. And I don't think there's any way that Teddy Bluger doesn't at least command a 4th round pick. And I think that they either set their prices at a 2nd or a 3rd. And although, yeah, I think a 3rd is the highest you go with Teddy Bluger. I was thinking a 2nd with how the market was flowing, but he is a smaller center. He isn't as maybe potentially offensively more upside, even though a lot of the guys that did get second round picks don't have too much upside in terms of their offense, and he has been producing an insane amount. He also has been hurt this year. So a third round pick is what you would say is max. A fourth round pick is probably what you would say is like minimum. A fifth round pick I would say is the lowest I would go, but even then I'd be afraid to bend the knee because teams would then know that they can just wait you out and take advantage of you. So unless Teddy Blueger does resign, it's an absolute failure, and I don't like this. But if he does resign and we're able to move him eventually in the offseason, he's a good leader. I like how he's been with the team recently, about how he's been just upset about how the team's been performing. He wants to push more out of his team. He wants to see more out of the team. If he's willing to stay and help be a part of the change, I like it. And it's a guy you kind of want, and it's a depth role. It's not a big asset you're missing out on. But at the same time, if he doesn't resign, you actually missed out on an asset. If he does resign, he stays, he wants to stick around, and then you trade him later on, then it's fine, and you get an asset. Just, you need to set a market for your players. And I feel like they failed to do it again. Yet again. They didn't set a market with Puster. They didn't set a market with Brock Besser. Evander Kane, I totally fine not being able to set a market on, because if I'm another team in a playoff spot, I'm absolutely not trading for him. But Teddy Blueger? You couldn't get a trade for Teddy Blueger? It's insane. It's insane. But we'll see. Hopefully they're able to re-sign him before the end of the season. Hopefully they're able to get a nice cheaper deal, but time will tell, and we don't know how it's going to go. That's about it for how they did. A C overall. Although I think they did good in the trades they made, they still showed signs of stuff that we didn't want to see, and we wanted to see better. I wanted Evander Kane and Teddy Blueger gone. If Teddy Blueger got traded and Evander Kane did it, and they're like, yeah, no one called on Evander Kane, I'd be like, yeah, that's totally fine. But Blueger got dealt, and that's totally fine. If they had just traded Blueger, I probably would have gave this like a B-. But the fact they didn't trade Blueger, it really drops it down. I'm going to give it a C. But yeah, that's it for how they do. What's next for the Vancouver Canucks now? So if we look at their contracts, their defensive contracts, they have Marcus Pettersson, who's locked down no movement clause for the next 2 seasons after this one. Same with Filip Hronek. Hronek has expressed desire to want to stay, and I'm fine with that. You need veterans. I feel like Hronek is a really good veteran to keep around, although I do think the contracts, or not the contracts, the trades that defensemen of his caliber were bringing in, like in terms of value, I really liked. I still don't think in 2 seasons, maybe he's on the last year of his no movement, and he's 29, 30. He's only 30, maybe 31. I still think he could be able to command a decent amount, a first plus, if he continues his play. And it opens up a little bit more. His protection is a 15-team no-trade list in the 28-29 season. He's good to keep around for a couple years to help develop, especially since your core is kind of here for your future D-man with Zeev Boyum, Tom Wielander, Victor Mancini, and DPD, all kind of already set up in the NHL. You don't really have too many big defensive prospects other than like Sawyer Minio and Kirill Kudryavtsev, maybe Basil Sansonin, Parker Alkos. But that's really about it. Unless you pick up a guy like Keaton Verhoff, and then obviously, or a Landon DuPont, then obviously those guys are your next big defensive prospects. But in terms of like the pretty good upside lefty, a pretty good second pair top 4 defenseman who could end up being a high end top 4 second pair defenseman. A guy who could end up being a top 4, number 4 in DPD, and a guy who's going to be a very solid bottom liner in Victor Mancini. That core is kind of set. And then you have Filip Hronek to help them out. You have Marcus Pettersson to help them out, and I think Marcus Pettersson, I would give a 2-year leeway. I would actually try in the offseason, and if you don't like what you're getting, I would wait 1 more year and just hope that he does get better, and I just hope they don't have to offload the contract. That's all I really hope, but we'll see when it comes to Marcus Pettersson. I would definitely try in the offseason, though, to see if you can move him. And then you pick up, if you're able to move Marcus Pettersson in the offseason, you get to free agency, you pick up a guy who could be like a bottom pairing D-man, but you have to play him up a role, but it helps shelter a guy a little bit. And then you know what I mean. Next up for the forwards, all the way up to, if you're looking at Puckpedia, Liam Ogren, Teddy Blueger, open up potential re-signing. That's all I gotta say. Just try to re-sign him for under 2.5. Don't give him more than O'Connor. I feel like I would give O'Connor as the baseline. He's older. I don't think he's as. I would give him on par with O'Connor. So I wouldn't go above 2.5. Niels Hoglander, if he needs to change the scenery and a team's willing to give you an asset for him, totally fine. I think 2 years at $3 million is a little less than. Obviously, 2 years at $3 million is a little less risky than 3 years at $3 million, but the $3 million price tag with how Hoglander's especially been playing this year, I don't think you're going to be able to move him. Marco Rossi, keep him. I'm keeping Marco Rossi. Evander Kane, let him walk. Just let him walk. Jake DeBrusk and Brock Besser, I would open up trades in the offseason. Same with Elias Pettersson. Those contracts are going to be easier to swallow in the offseason than they are right now. And if Jake DeBrusk doesn't get traded next year and you go through one more year with them, you open up a 15-team no-trade list, meaning that you'll be eventually able to move Jake DeBrusk with a little bit more ease. If he wants to just stick around for 2 years and see what you can get, that's totally fine. But yet again, try to move him as soon as possible. Try to get assets for him. Brock Besser and Elias Pettersson, I would try to move them. But if you have to keep them, you need vets. Those guys I don't mind at all keeping. And Elias Pettersson's going to be very hard to move. Goaltending, Thatcher Demko, he wants to stay. I feel like he's the guy you got to keep around in terms of just like how he's, how he acts. He wants to stay. So it's going to be very tough to get him to want to move, especially with the no movement. But I would test the market. And I would accept calls, but I wouldn't go out trying to trade him. Kevin Lankinen, he only has 1 more year of a no-movement clause. You got to try to move him after that. And but the worry is you have to pay assets to move him. So that's the worry. You got to look to see if you can get him out of here. But it's going to be very tough because just trying to find assets, trying to be able to not have to move an asset out with him is going to be a little tough. Maybe you can add him in a package where it doesn't significantly hurt the value as much, but yeah, I don't know. And then, the offseason, those guys that I talked about, you try to move in the offseason. That's what's next for the Vancouver Canucks. Pick up a few veterans to fill out the spots so the rookies aren't playing too much up in the lineup. And without further ado, we are going to sim the draft lottery. All right, we are here at the draft lottery screen, so we are going to sim it. This is what next for the Vancouver Canucks. Are they going to win the draft lottery? They don't win the draft lottery. The simulation I do, and the Devils and the Panthers, literally the worst case scenario. Can we do it one more time? There we go. That's a little bit better. The Vancouver Canucks. So, yeah, we see the 2 results. I think those are absolutely the 2 results the Vancouver Canucks get. Either they get first and we get so lucky and we finally get a first overall pick in this franchise, or we get third. Looking at it, I like Ivar Stenberg or Gavin McKenna, whichever one you feel is best. In my personal opinion, I'm higher on Gavin McKenna right now, but I haven't done as much scouting for this draft class as I have in former draft classes, but Keaton Verhoff is a really, really good consolation prize, so even if we do end up at third, I totally don't mind that at all. With the Minnesota pick, a lot of people are talking about a potential Ruck brother pick here. If you're talking to other teams, he hasn't gone above this, and it is in 27. It could be a little earlier, but it is in 27, and no one has picked Ruck yet. I feel like you ask, and within these picks, if there's no Liam Ruck, we're not, then you can leave it to here and see if you can get a guy. I would say go for a guy like Ryan Ruberek. Is there any other guys? Like, I don't want to go too. I really like Thomas Renko. I really, really do like Thomas Renko. I feel like I'm way too high on him, but I just really liked his World Juniors play. I feel like he wouldn't be a bad pick, so I would go with these 2 picks, Renko and Ruck. And then I would either go the other. I'm just gonna scroll down. So yeah, I would go the other Ruck with this pick. If you're gonna take one, you got to take both. I understand a lot of people being like, "Oh, you take the best player available." Well, I think Liam Ruck is really good in this range, and I feel like Thomas Renko is really good in this range as well. If one of these teams is gonna pick Liam Ruck, I feel like you go with this pick, and then you take Thomas Renko with this pick, and then I don't think anyone's going to want to take Liam Ruck, and although I do think it is a bit of a reach, unless you're able to trade down, you go for Marcus Ruck. I apologize. Adam Damage, oh wow, he really fell in this draft. Third round I won't go to because I'm not too sure. The only player I really know on this screen is Callum Coskery. Yeah, the only or Ethan McKenzie, but yeah, the only player I really know is Callum Coskery. So yeah, that's my plan for the draft. So let's cut back to the podcast screen. But yeah, that's about it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. The Vancouver Canucks game right now against the against who we played right now, Chicago, is starting right now, so I gotta go. So yeah, if you're a Canucks fan, you enjoy this kind of content, I set a goal to try to hit 500 subscribers by the end of this regular season. So hit that subscribe button, leave a like down below, and comment what you thought about the Vancouver Canucks trade deadline. And did you think that my grading was fair? Did you think that maybe I bumped the grading down a little too much, and that they actually did do a little bit better, maybe more like a C+, B-? But yeah, let me know in the comments. Before I get into the total outro, though, I just want to say the franchise mode videos will hopefully be next week. I'll let you guys know on my community tab if I'm going to record like a more fun video. Maybe I do a draft class thing. Maybe I do an awards thing. And I have to delay it one more week because I'm doing something maybe like resetting the franchise mode with the different rosters. I will let you guys know. Stay tuned to my community post. But yeah, without further ado, the video on your right is the video from Monday. The video on your left is the video from Friday. Subscribe is right down under there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.